Hi guys, welcome to Thursday. I hope that you have had a great week making connections with the stories you've been reading, the stories and the poem that you've been reading. I am going to continue with making connections, but today we're going to do it across genres, the fiction genre of the fiction story and the poem. So we're going to combine those. We're going to kind of compare and contrast those two. So today your objective is you will be able to make a connection across genres while you are reading using a fictional story and a poem. And then we're going to put that into a graphic organizer, and that's going to help you sum it all up. So today, let's go back over what making connections is. Making connections is when you take something that you are reading and you connect it to something that's either happened to you, which is text to self, or something that you've read, which is text to text, or something that's going on in the world, which is text to world. So making connections is an excellent way to help you recall the story, help you connect to the story and understand the story better, help you to remember characters, help you to remember the events, the problem, and the solution. It helps connect all of those ideas together. And so that's what making connections does for you. So that's why we do it. That's why it's important. As a good reader, we want to always make connections. So I'm going to go take us back to and remind us quickly about the two different fiction stories that I've used this week. So the first one is A Spider's Scheme. So A Spider's Scheme was about a spider who decided he wanted to take over the world, and he tried to get the word out to all the spiders, but it was a slow process. The spiders were kind of slow in getting the word out, and then some started the invading before the others, and then it just all fell apart. But that one spider kept trying, and he kept really wanting this to happen, and so he kept working hard to try and get it to work. And in the end, it didn't work, but he then realized he began a new plan because he had met ants, and I think, if I inferred it correctly, ants are very organized, and I think he was thinking he needed to be organized like the ants. But that is the fictional part of the fictional story in this week that I have read for you. And then the poem for this week was It Couldn't Be Done, and it's about a man or a boy or I know it's a he, and he kept trying. Everybody would make fun of him or tease him or say he couldn't do it, but he kept trying to do some kind of impossible task, and he did it because he kept going and he never gave up. So in both of these stories, the theme seems to be the same, whether it's in The Spider Scheme or It Couldn't Be Done. The theme was to never give up. So I am going to now take the graphic organizer, making connections across text, fictional story, and poem. So I put my title of my fictional story and the title of my poem. Now, I'm going to go through each part, each things to compare, character analysis, events, theme, and topics. And we're going to do the fictional story on this column, the poem on this column, and then we're going to do the similarities and the differences. The similarities are the white, and the differences are in the gray. So, and we'll put each one here. That's how we're going to compare and contrast them. Okay, so before we look into the similarities and differences, let's recap the stories. So the character analysis for the fictional story, I said the spider was determined to take over the world. So that was his character. That was his desire. And then in the poem, I said the man in the poem was determined to do an impossible thing or a task. So let's go to the events. The events were people were laughing and killing the spiders, but the spider kept going. The man was being ridiculed by people, and he didn't stop. So that was the events, things that were going on and how the events played out. The theme is never give up, same for the poem. For both the stories, the theme was the same. And then the topic, spiders wanted to take over the world, and then the man wanted to accomplish an impossible task. So now that we've kind of reevaluated the fictional story and the poem, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to determine the similarities and the differences for each item. So the first item was character analysis. So I said the similarities were that they were both determined and they never gave up. But the differences were that the spider did fail and the man accomplished his task. So the spider did not accomplish his, but the man did. And in the events, I said the similarities were that people were ridiculing them, meaning they were giving them a hard time. They didn't believe it was going to happen, and they kept ridiculing them or laughing at them or saying they can't do it. The differences was, again, the spider's scheme failed and the man accomplished his task in the events. So that's the similarities and differences for events. Now let's go to the theme. The theme is, it's the same theme. So that's the similarity. The difference is that the man or the spider didn't have the same ending. So the spider, the ending, it ended where he failed, and then the man ended where he did accomplish his thing. But the same thing is still true, that they never gave up, because the spider, he still didn't give up. He was still developing a plan at the end. And then the topics of the stories, or the story in the poem, that the similarities was that both tasks were hard. Taking over the world has got to be very hard, but also in the poem, they never said what the task was, but they did say it was very hard, or it was hard to accomplish, impossible. So both tasks were hard. But the difference is we don't know the man's tasks in the poem, so we don't know what the actual topic of the poem was in the sense of what he was doing, but we do know that what he was doing was a very impossible task. So the difference here was, we know that the spider's task was to take over the world. We don't know what the task was here. And so that's why that was the difference in that poem, from the poem to the fictional text. Okay, guys, so you are going to reread, if you need to, your fictional story. Oh, I'm so sorry. Reread the fictional story, and then you're going to reread your poem, only if you need to. If you need to to remember your things. If you need to remember what each poem and the story was about, then you can reread it. If not, and you feel confident and you can answer, use the graphic organizer to focus your thoughts. I have put up there a flip grid for group 1, a flip grid for group 2, and group 3 and 4, you can either use the graphic organizer only and fill in the blanks like we have been, or you can go to the Making Connections Padlet and tell me your answers in the Padlet using the graphic organizer to help you focus your answers. So guys, remember, today you are going to make a connection across text using a fictional story and a poem, and then you're going to make a comparison using similarities and differences in both for each item to compare. That's for all groups, group 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have to do every single item and do your similarities and differences for both. Okay, guys, I hope this was helpful. Remember to, if you need to, rewatch the video if it helps you to remember what needs to be done. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day. Take care.